Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in to this video from the Warrior Sword. It is good to be with you again. This will be our last video that is pre-recorded, and we're going to release this actually on a Wednesday, which is Veterans Day. The reason for that is because when we determined that we couldn't do the message God wins in one service, but we needed to do that in two, then that took the extra time out of that from the plan of doing this message. Some of you have heard this message before. It's a little bit revised, and so even if you have heard it before, I hope that you will continue to watch and listen. It is very passionate to me, as the last messages about God wins was about the persecuted church, and that is something that is very passionate to me, that I'm very passionate about. This is something that I'm very passionate about as well. And then I took a little spin off from that of our national veterans and put that into the attitude of spiritual veterans. And so I hope that this will encourage you spiritually. If you happen to be a veteran or a soldier that has served or is serving our nation, I want you to know that I deeply appreciate you. And we're releasing this on Veterans Day just so I could say that to you. I appreciate the effort that you make, the sacrifice that you make. And oftentimes, I was talking to a veteran just the other day, and they was talking about a couple of their children were born while they were deployed, and how hard that is to go through that. I know that same thing happens often in the ministry, especially those of us that has been called to traveling, that a lot of things happen when we are not home, and that causes great issues with us. At least it did with me anyway. And so my heart goes out. My heart goes out to those of you that have family or friends, or maybe you yourself have served in this nation, and I appreciate you so very much. So I hope that you will know from the Warrior Sword how important you are and how much we pray for you. The message today is called The Veteran, and like I say, we're going to kind of spin off from that because I look at things more from the spiritual sense. That's not to kind of make the physical sense unimportant, and that's why I said what I said at the beginning here. But I look at things from the spiritual sense. In Psalms chapter 55, verses 16 to 18, it says this, and this is from King David. As for me, I will call upon God, and the Lord shall save me. Evening and morning and at noon will I pray and cry aloud, and he shall hear my voice. He hath delivered my soul in peace from the battle that was against me, for there were many with me. And I believe that many with me was not talking about in the spiritual or in the physical realm, but instead in the spiritual realm. We do have national veterans, and we do have spiritual veterans, and both are very important to the well-being of our nation of America as it stands. As you're watching this, and again, I'm recording this video a couple of weeks before the election, but as you're watching this, a lot of changes may be taking place in our nation. But it is very important for us to recognize that both those national veterans in our military and the spiritual veterans in the spiritual warfare of ministry is very important. One of the things that is very dangerous is that you cannot always tell in both realms where your enemy is coming from. It used to be, that the soldiers of the foreign nations would have on hats and uniforms, helmets, I should say, and uniforms, and they would be carrying outer weapons, guns, or whatever, and you could easily recognize that that was an enemy that was coming against you. Now our enemies send out little children in order to be cannon fodder for them to protect them. And oftentimes our soldiers have been absolutely persecuted and prosecuted for hopeless situations because there was no way that they could tell going into the battle who their enemy was. And it's the same way within the spiritual realm. You can't always easily see who the enemy is because often the enemy is wolves from within. In fact, the scripture tells us that the enemies, that's Matthew chapter 10, verse 36, that the enemies often come from our own household. The enemies often come from within our own church. The enemies often come from the inside. And so when it is warriors from the outside that you're facing, it is easy to tell. But when they come from the inside, you just can't know. A while back, there was a U.S. military person that went in Texas. I believe it was in Fort Hood, one of our own, and shot down a number of people. And so we're facing a different kind of an enemy. And Satan is very covert in what he does. He doesn't often come in like a big flash of lightning. Oftentimes he comes in very, very subtle, and we don't always see him coming until oftentimes we're in the middle of the situation. But it does happen. Look at the 10 spies that laid waste to the nation of Israel because they discouraged the nation of Israel from going in to the promised land. That was within the nation of Israel itself. Or look even maybe more so at Judas with Jesus. One of the 12 disciples, one of the hand-picked people that Jesus put into the inner circle, was the one that betrayed him. And so that maybe gives you a picture of what I'm talking about in the sense of the fact that you can't always recognize who the enemies are. And that makes it very, very dangerous. War veterans have to learn a number of things to survive in battle. They have to learn when to duck and when to advance. If you're always in the mode of advancement, you're probably not going to survive the battle. So there are times when you need to just stop and lay low, and there's times when you need to advance in the battle. There are times when you need to be silent and times when you need to fire. I don't know about any of you, but I find the hardest times when I'm supposed to be silent. It's very easy to go in with guns blazing to deal with whatever issues you're facing against. But when the Lord says just lay down in the grass and be quiet and don't do anything, oh boy, is that ever the hard part of things. You remember that adage that came, don't shoot till you see the whites of their eyes. A true warrior has to understand when to aim the weapon and when to shoot the weapon and how to reload the weapon in the middle of battle and continue to fight in the battle in the situation where eventually, unfortunately, it doesn't happen like the old Westerns where they can take a 6-shooter and shoot it 45 times and never run out of bullets. The reality is that sometimes, and spiritually speaking as well, sometimes we run out of ammunition. We get tired. We get weary of the battle, and sometimes it's really hard to reload, but we've got to learn to do that in order to be able to survive the things that are around us. I came up with 3 principles that we must learn to survive as spiritual veterans, and they are very, very important. They are not a side issue. So I hope that maybe you'll make note of this and remember this as we may be going into the greatest battles as Americans that we have ever faced. We've just experienced the stirring of that and the shaking of that, but the real battles may be coming in against us really, really rapidly. And so it's important for us to understand the things that we must realize. Number 1, the battle is God's battle. There is no question about that. The battle is God's battle. 2 Chronicles chapter 20, verse 15. Be not afraid or dismayed by reason of the great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but God's. It's been one of the hardest things for me to learn as a minister, to just recognize. And I like the story of Elijah when the servant says that the enemy is surrounding us, and God says, open his eyes that he might see. And the servant's eyes are open spiritually, and he recognizes the chariots of fire and the angels ready to go to battle on their behalf. We have many that stand on our side. And that's why I say to you, the important thing is not what happens in Washington, D.C. The important thing is what happens in the kingdom of God. And we are facing principalities and powers, and it is a real battle. But we've got to understand that ultimately that battle is not ours. We must understand. Now, yes, are we a part of the battle? Yes. And I'm not saying to you just sit down and don't do anything, because if that's what you're hearing, you're missing the entire point of what's going on throughout the ages. And let me just call off a few things. March around the wall, blow the trumpet, shout, break the pitchers, say the prayer, sing the praise. Go do what you got to do. And yes, we have a part in this, and this is what we must do. But we must realize in all of this, the battle belongs to the Lord. I love the story about D.L. Moody, and I've quoted that quite often. A ship that he was on caught fire, and he got into the bucket brigade helping to pass water to put out the fire. And a guy said to him, well, shouldn't you be below deck praying? And D.L. Moody said, I'll tell you what, I will pray while I pass the buckets. And certainly we need to be praying, and boy, have I been harping on that through the last number of weeks in the videos. Certainly we need to be praying, but at the same time, sometimes we need to be passing the buckets. God will bring the increase, but it is only after we plant and water that he brings the increase. And so don't get the attitude that we're just supposed to sit down and do nothing, but recognize the battle is the Lord's. I love this little story, and you may hear me quote this in different videos that we do, but in World War I, a French soldier used to carry a card with him that helped him to overcome worry. This was found later, and this is what the card said. Of two things, one is certain. Either you are at the front or you are behind the lines. If you are at the front, of two things, one is certain. Either you are exposed to danger or you are in a safe place. If you are exposed to danger, of two things, one is certain. Either you are wounded or you are not wounded. If you are wounded, of two things, one is certain. Either you recover or you die. If you recover, there is no need to worry. If you die, you cannot worry. So why worry? Boy, I think a lot of us should put that up on our refrigerators and read that every single day. It's like we try to take on things that we can't change, and we try to fix battles that I'm famous for that. If you don't struggle with that, praise God. But I am famous for that, of struggling in those battles. And that's why I say in my ministry, some of that has been so hard to learn. One of two things is certain, and your worry is not going to change those two things, either one of them. And so recognize that the battle is the Lord's. Come out and do those things that will win the battle that God has called you to do. Because God uses people to win the battle. But that doesn't mean that the battle belongs to the people. The battle belongs to the Lord. Praise his name. The second thing, we must put our undying trust in him, even when it seems the battle is going against us. Our undying trust must be in him. We must always recognize, First Chronicles 5:20, and they were helped against them, and the Hagarites were delivered into their hand, and all that were with them, for they cried to God in the battle. And he was entreated of them because they put their trust in him. Isn't that clear? Why do we struggle with that? That's so clear. The Israelite children got into the battle and they were way outnumbered, and it seemed like that everything was going against them, so they cried out to the Lord, and because they put their trust in him, he answered. Some of you and some of me may be struggling right now in putting our ultimate trust in the Lord, because things may not be going the way that we want them to be. By the time you watch this, I will have already preached at 2 churches and visited both of my children, and I'll be just a couple of days away from getting back into the vehicle and trying to drive back home. And there are physical issues that I'm dealing with that complicates that. And sometimes in the middle, and you say, well, Mike, are you whining? No, I'm not whining. Somebody said to me just the other day, well, I sure wouldn't get in the car and drive in that situation. Well, if I can get the car to run, and I'll know that you will know that by the time you watch this, as I'm recording it, I don't know that right now. Actually, as I'm recording it, the car is in a garage being looked at. I don't know that right now. But my trust is not in the car, and my trust is not in Washington, and the trust is not in myself. My trust has to be in the Lord, and I have cried out to him. And folks, so often, and we want to disregard this verse out of the scripture, but James says, if you are double-minded, you should not think that you will receive anything from the Lord. Some people cry out to him and say, well, Lord, you said that you would answer my prayers. But they're double-minded. And they want to call out one verse and ignore the entirety of the rest of the scripture. But the scripture says, if I am double-minded, and I think part of what God has been focusing on in my own life is an attitude of double-mindedness. It's like you can pray all you want to, but if you're double-minded, don't expect that you will receive anything from God. So God must deal with that. And we must come to the place where our trust is absolutely without question in God. Even when it seems like we are desperately losing the battle. By the way, we're not losing the battle. If we are serving the Lord and it's his battle, guess what? I told you the last 2 videos. God wins. You can count on it. God is going to win. So therefore, my trust should be in him. You'll often hear me say this. I'm sure I've said it in videos. I will say it again. Do you really believe what the Bible says? Immediately, everybody raises their hand and says, yes, I do. Then why don't you live like it? And why don't you act like it? And why don't I live like it? And why don't I act like it? If we really believe what the Word of God says, then we should be acting like it. I have said that about the disciples. Jesus said to them on the 3rd day, I will rise again. So they should have been standing outside of the tomb waiting on him to walk out. Instead, they were cowering away, afraid that the Roman guards were coming for them, or the Sanhedrin was coming for them, and they weren't there. They should have been there when Jesus walked out of that tomb. Do you really believe what God's word says? Then are you willing to follow the cloud and the fire by night? And when the cloud and the fire doesn't move, you don't move. I ask that from our church couple weeks ago. So those of you from my church that are listening and watching, you'll certainly recognize that if you truly believe what God says. Lastly, God will deliver the victory. God wins. He will always win. 1 Samuel 17:47, and all this assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you, our enemies, into our hands. I love the verses about David when he's going to battle, this young man, not a warrior, not someone that was seasoned in the physical veteran warfare. But as he literally runs down that hill towards this big, huge fighting giant Goliath, and he says to him, "You come to me with a spear and a sword. I come to you in the name of the Lord. And today the Lord is going to deliver you into my hands." While Goliath was mocking him and laughing at him and saying that he was going to feed his useless bones to the scavenger birds, David recognized God will deliver the victory. Folks, if you don't let go of God's hand, and I'm not saying to you you're not going to get scars. Yes, the battle belongs to the Lord, but the reality is when we're in the battle, we get scars. We get hurt. Sometimes the enemy comes from within. And sometimes it's people that we have put our trust in, or we've tried our very best to be their friends, or we've tried our very best to try to do the things that we were supposed to do, and they spit in our face. We carry the scars of the battle. But God will deliver the victory. You can count on it. We've watched in this nation. Do you all realize that we shouldn't have had any chance against England? We had a bunch of ragtag farmer, rancher, whatever. They had trained, disciplined soldiers. And we sent them back to England with their tail between their legs. Story after story, and I may tell some of those in a few weeks when I talk about Stand for Israel Sunday. Story after story. Israel should have been crushed. And God stepped in and delivered them. It's not just in the spiritual realm. It is in the spiritual realm, but it's not just in the spiritual realm. It's in the physical realm as well. God will deliver the victory. If you're losing right now, maybe it's because you have the brush in your hand, trying to figure out how to paint it yourself, trying to figure out how to make everything work out. Oh God, have I ever been there. Instead of allowing him to be the general and you to be the private, you're trying everything inside of yourself to try to fix it on your own. And right now, and as I say, I don't know what has happened at the point that you will be watching this, but right now we're in a real crossroads in our nation, and no matter who has won the election, there's going to be revolting going on from either side of this. Whatever happens in this, there's a lot of trouble coming to America in the days ahead. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't recognize that God is going to deliver the victory and not you, you'll probably end up in despair and discouragement and depression. You must know today that you are the private and he's the general. And you need to follow him wherever he tells you to go. I think that we as Americans should desperately, desperately show our appreciation to every soldier that we get the opportunity to do that with. And I do appreciate you. And I think the world of you. My dad was a veteran. I still carry his flag and hold that with high esteem. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you have loved ones the same way. I recognize very, very much the sacrifices that are made. Thank you. And I also recognize those spiritual veterans that have laid down their lives to go into foreign lands and to go into places that they were not welcomed, and to do all kinds of things to win people to Jesus Christ. I've had that awesome, awesome opportunity to lead a number of people to Christ. And some of them I know about and some of them I don't. But I am very honored to be a spiritual veteran as well. And I honor all of you as well. We'll release this video a few days early on Veterans Day with that intention for anyone that might see it. I want to wish all of our veterans a happy Veterans Day. I want to wish all of you family members that have lost your loved ones that were veterans a very good Veterans Day. May you remember all of the wonderful things that they did and not just the tragedies in their lives. I appreciate you watching, and I pray that you will commit in these days ahead as we begin to get ready to go into 2021. Oh, God, help us that this year might be better. I don't know. It probably won't. But whether it is or it is not, we have a job to do. God is with us. It is His battle, and we will not lose if we keep our hands in His. So let's trust Him and believe in Him. And when we get back from the East, then we'll begin to record the videos more in real time again, and we'll deal with whatever we're dealing with, whatever that may be. God bless you. Pray for us as we drive back from the East and head back to Arizona for safety. And for all of that, I appreciate your prayers. And again, if you want me to be praying for you, you email me or message me or whatever you need to do. And I promise we're doing that. God bless you. Thank you for watching.